So thank you for joining me on this latest episode of the Customer First podcast. And I'm really excited today to have on a genuine expert. And we hear that word used so much nowadays that if you have the pleasure of talking to someone who's got more than 36 years in a single activity or a single industry, then they definitely are an expert. And I'm going to let him introduce himself right now, because I think whatever I say will be short of explaining his background. So just introduce yourself for me, please.
Sure. My name's Shep Hyken, and yes, I'm recognized as a customer service and experience expert. I've been doing this for about 38 years now. Let's see, started in 1983, so whatever that, 37, 38, something like that. Close to it, close. I'm not an accountant. So, but this has been just a great journey. My passion, this is where it is. I've had it since I was actually very young, when my parents taught me to write thank you notes to customers that hired me to do magic shows for birthday parties, and how to show up early, stay a little late, give a little extra value. Lots of lessons learned as a child, and little did I know that I could make a career out of understanding what makes customers happy. I think if there's one thing that I believe, it's not so much that I'm this high-level expert, because I'm not. There's so many people out there that are so much smarter than I am. But what I think my what do they call it? The superpower, if there is such a thing, the goal is to make the complicated simple. And I take something that I don't really think is all that complicated, and I just try to make it even simpler. Because I believe so much of what we talk about when it comes to customer service is common sense that's not so common. And if we move into the experience world, well, then we can talk about, data and artificial intelligence. And I think because I've immersed myself into this world, I pick up a lot more information than typically most people do. I also still read quite a bit every single day, probably about 8 to 10 articles a day. Plus, I read books that come out. So that's me.
Yeah, I love that. And you just reminded me again then, that story of you as you grew up, you did your magic shows. Do you want to just expand on that a little bit? Because as you also said, customer service, customer experience can be so simple. There was a nice little story there you sort of touched on. Could you go into a little bit of detail on that?
So I'm 12 years old, and I did my first birthday show, a birthday party magic show. It was after school. My mom picked me up, dropped me off at this house, and I came back afterward. We're having dinner, and my mom asked me what I was going to do after dinner, and I thought because it was a school night, I should do my homework. And she says, not until you write a thank you note to the people that just paid you $16 to do that magic show. And I remember I'm 12 years old. That was a long time ago. In today's money, that's somewhere around $2,812. So I don't know. It was a lot of money for a little kid, $16. My dad said, great idea. Next week, after they've received the note, call and thank them again, and then ask them if they were happy with the show. And I go, that is a great idea. So he goes, but you got to understand what you're listening for is ask them what tricks they like the best. And if you do this a bunch of shows, and then you'll get a bunch of great answers. You'll start to accumulate. I didn't know it was called data, but that's exactly what it was. And he said, you'll start to hear them talking about certain tricks and not talking about others. Whatever they're not talking about, get rid of and replace it with something that they'll talk about. And that way, you'll be able to create a better show. That's outstanding. So I was learning to show appreciation, to get feedback, to act on the feedback, process improvement, all of these ideas. I didn't know that's what they were called, but that's what I was taught.
So growing up then, you've had a couple of examples there. You talked about your parents obviously giving you some advice, which, sometimes today people rely on an MBA or a certification, and sometimes they forget about those practical life experiences maybe that can really shape, what they can offer to customers, or what customer experience should be perhaps.
Yeah, and so many times our life experiences go by without us noticing what we're being taught. And for some people, they just pick up on it and they grow with it, where others, it's somebody trying to teach them something, and it's just they don't get it, and it doesn't matter how many times, unless they're specifically, being mentored and coached at a deeper level. Because it's one thing for a boss to say, hey, next time do it this way. And, you start to do it this way, but the way the boss did it wasn't a coaching or mentoring process. It was just a direction. And without any explanation, why is this important? Some of us will get it no matter what, but it's so important that as a young guy, I was very lucky. It became intuitive. I remember my father teaching me why it was important to show up early, not just showing up early. I'll tell you that story. So I'm doing my magic shows, and I got to a point where I was doing like 8 to 10 every weekend. Now, I want you to realize, and by that time, I'm 14, 15 years old, and I'm making sometimes $75 for a birthday party. I remember one day I got $100 with the tip, and that's a lot. Now, keep in mind, this is decades ago, okay? Not that many decades ago. That's a lot of money. And I figured out, wow, I had my box of tricks set up. And when I got to a location, all I did was open the box. The tricks were ready to go. I do the trick, put it right back where it belonged so that I could get to the next place. No setup time. I was ready to go when I walked in. Point me to the corner you want me to perform in, and I'm ready to go. And my dad noticed that I was showing up about 5 minutes before the magic show was to start. And this is what he said to me. What time, at what point do you think the parents look at their watch and wonder if you're going to show up at all? And I went, I didn't think about that. I mean, I got there. If the show was supposed to start at 1, I was always there, 3, 4, 5 minutes early. He says, I'm going to bet it's 15 or 20 minutes. I may have even said that. He goes, exactly. So what you need to do is show up at least 15 to 20 minutes ahead of time, at least. Otherwise, you're late because they're upset. They're stressed out. You don't want to do that. And what that meant is I had to do one less magic show per Saturday and one less on Sunday because those extra 15 minutes ate up into that extra time. But guess what? I found that the parents were happier with me. And guess what? They loved it, and they were really willing to refer me, and they were willing to hire me again for their other kids and maybe come back and do a second year. And I noticed that was happening more frequently when I did the right thing and showed up a little bit earlier than they expected. And there you go, customer service. It doesn't cost, it pays. The effort to make it happen turned into repeat business and referrals. And that's what the goal is. We're trying to create an experience that's totally hassle-free, stressless, convenient. And I learned I would call the parents. They might book me for this birthday party 3 months in advance. And of course, we send a little letter of agreement. I remember I'm a teenager, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. I send the letter. 1 week before, I call and say, hey, I'm just checking in. I know this is our birthday. I know this is the plan. And by the way, I'm just reconfirming directions. I should be there about 10 to 15 minutes ahead of time. And I was always there 15 to 20 minutes ahead of time. And the parents loved that. So you're creating trust. So much of the customer experience that people have is about trust. Can I trust that this person or this company is going to do what it is that they promised they would do? We see Amazon. Why do we love Amazon? Amazon is able to confirm every step of the way our transaction with them. So if I decide I want to buy something, as soon as I click, one click purchasing, one click buying, I immediately get an email saying your purchase, you've made your purchase. Your purchase has now been shipped. It's expected to be with you on this day. And here's the tracking number. And now I even get an email after the package has arrived to tell me that, hey, it's waiting for you at home or it's at the office. At the office, I would get it no matter what during the day. But you get the idea. It's this constant confirmation. And so much of that goes toward creating a trust for that company. Now, let me tell you what trust is. Trust is not just, I know it's going to happen. Trust is a trigger it's emotional. It's in your brain. And when you can create any kind of an emotional response that's positive with your customer, you stand a better chance of getting repeat business and ultimately creating customer loyalty.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. I tell you what, you've dropped some real nuggets there. And, when I read this book of yours,
I love that
it really
book.
inspired me. Yeah, well, it inspired me to one of the sayings I use all the time, which is, every customer is important. And then the stories you've just told there reinforce that message so much that you've shown me that even with a smaller customer and a bigger customer, you've really wanted to look after them and amaze them and treat them well. And I guess that's something that sometimes sales and marketing people miss out on nowadays. They focus very much on the bigger customers.
Yeah, they do. So let's go. You held up the book, Amaze Every Customer Every Time. So the background on that book is I used a company throughout the entire book that I felt everybody could relate to. It's not a book about Ace Hardware. It's a book that uses Ace Hardware as an example. And this was my challenge to myself. Every time I write a book, the book that was prior to that was called The Amazement Revolution. And it was 7 strategies to create an amazing. There you go. Thank you very much.
These are my 2 favorite books from yourself. I'm not saying the other ones aren't very good, but these are my 2 favorite books of yours.
But in that book, The Amazement Revolution, there were 7 ideas. And each of the ideas, I used 5 case studies to support each of the ideas from 5 different companies. So there were 36 companies represented throughout the entire book as case studies. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be cool to find a company that nobody's ever written about before, that everybody would recognize for great service, and that we could learn from, and that was what I was looking for. And I could use as the case study throughout the entire book as opposed to multiple case studies. This was not an easy task. So Ace Hardware kind of fell in my lap because they were one of my clients that I did speeches for. And I didn't realize they had about, at the time, I think it was somewhere around 4,700 stores or 70 countries, okay? Wow, I'll bet everybody recognizes Ace Hardware, and everybody I knew did. And that month, Business Week came out with the top 25 customer service brands in the world, and Ace Hardware was represented as number 10. And boy, I was blown away because the Ritz-Carlton, one of my favorite companies, was actually behind Ace Hardware. Now, it was based on looking at all the public reviews that were there and some other awards that they had received from all these different brands. And I thought, wow, this could be the company. In that book, there's 52 tools. One of the tools or ideas is about looking at your customers, not by how much they spend or how little they spend, but the fact that they're actually just a customer, because there is an average amount of money that your customer will spend with you. And a big customer spends more, a little customer spends a lot less. But when you average it all together, you know that the average customer is worth X number of dollars. And once you understand what the average customer is worth, you start to realize you need to treat them all at some level the same. Obviously, if somebody's a huge, big customer, you're going to treat them a little differently. But you start to recognize that treating smaller customers fast is a big mistake, when on average, they come in at this number. And there's a great example in the book about somebody that came in, I believe, to buy mason jars. And I can't remember what the exact story was, but the basic story was, it's like, take the mason jars back, give her other mason jars, recognize what the average value of that customer is. And when you start to understand that value, you start to make better decisions that are proactive for the customer, not just for your own company.
Yeah, no, great. And of course, you do treat some customers differently, like you said. Some customers do need that specialization, but in a way, you're bringing up your standard to say, my standard is to treat my customers well, not down here. And I think some of that, it's maybe lost a little bit nowadays, but the companies that are doing it right are seeing those results. And in terms of sort of the whole COVID situation at the moment, we're seeing, I'm speaking to a lot of customer service frontline staff who are struggling a little bit. They are being put under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
They're working from home a little bit. They've got people on the other side, real human beings who have a problem or have a birthday party maybe to arrange. What are you seeing on your side? What advice are you giving to people and to companies on how to deal with that?
Sure. And by the way, I'm working from home today. This is my man cave that you're looking at. However, if you ever saw the videos that we do from my office, it also looks like my man cave. It's just, this truly is my home.
It's a consistent experience. It's a consistent experience.
Yeah. What's really interesting is that when, we've been forced to make a change, most people were sent home to work. Obviously, the essential workers weren't. But people in the contact center world, every one of them had to go home. They weren't allowed to cluster in a large contact center because you weren't allowed to have more than well, actually for a time you were told stay at home. So all of a sudden, many of us are forced with a new environment. Customers, so let's talk about what happened there. There was a great study, and I wish if I was in my office, I would have the actual study who did it. They studied actually the UK where you are and the US where I am, and they said that the amount of increase in customers wanting to talk to a person rather than handle their own problems through frequently asked questions or going on a website and researching it on their own increased during COVID-19's pandemic by 38% approximately. And I think it was like 37 or 38% one country to the other. It doesn't matter, but somewhere between 35 and 40%. That means that more than a third of an increase in calls. And these people could have typically managed the experience using a digital method, self-service, if you will. And what I took from that is that, wow, the agents, number one, the call volume is up, so there's no time to rest. We got to move, and get through these calls. That's stressful. Number two, a lot of these customers, the reason they want to talk to somebody is they want to talk to anybody. They haven't been talking to people. They've been sequestered or quarantined at home, and they feel like they need connection. So that means that as an agent, I need to be more empathetic. I need to have better listening skills. I need to be more human and not just answer a question and move on. That's the conflict. Call volume's up, but I need to be more human and more empathetic and spend just a moment or two to make this customer feel better. There's this conflict there. Well, the best companies recognize the conflict is simple to resolve. Err toward what the customer's wanting in their experience. It pays dividends down the road. Now, what that means is you still need to eliminate the longer call hold times. How do you do that? You scale up, you ramp up. Now, it's important and we're getting off topic here, but I think it's important that when we have a customer that has reached out to us for a solution that could be easily found on a website, through a tutorial video, whatever, we must not only answer the problem and question that the customer has, but we must also teach the customer how to use those tools next time. And even if the customer says, yeah, I know, I just wanted to call you, you need to say, okay, I totally get it. By the way, there's some other benefits we want to share with you. You want to give them the incentive to do this. I'm going to go back many years ago. It doesn't relate to COVID-19, but it relates to training customers to do what a company wants them to do. Years ago, Delta Airlines, I believe, was the first airline to come up with buying your ticket online rather than calling up a reservationist. And they gave the incentive of extra frequent flyer miles, and at some point they said a $25 discount. I believe it was Delta that said that, but one of the airlines said $25 discount if you'll do the online, because they knew the online would be a better solution for everybody, customer and company. And that's exactly what happened. By giving them the incentive and pushing them to that direction, they trained their customers on a better system. I remember somebody once told me, he goes, I just had the best experience on Delta Airlines. I go, well, tell me about it. He says, I got all the way to the gate, and it wasn't until that point that I had to talk to one of the employees. And I go, are they really that bad? He goes, oh no, the employees are great. I'm just saying they created this great system. I could go online, I could buy my ticket, I can check in online, and I don't even have to go to the ticket counter. I just go straight to the gate. And he said, I know that there was a problem. I could call the airline and they would help me. So he knew there was a fallback, but he was able to do it all himself. Self-service is a big opportunity. And if we teach our customers to use self-service the right way, they will actually get a better experience than if they had to wait on hold for even 4 minutes or 3 minutes, which doesn't seem unreasonable. We have a survey going out this week, as a matter of fact, to more than 1,000 consumers. And I'm asking them, what constitutes long hold times? What constitutes a long response time via email, via Twitter, via any social media channels? And at what point do you hold where you say, I'm done, I'm moving on to another company? There's a percentage of customers that will just say 3 to 5 minutes, it's too long, I'm done. And next time you've lost them.
Yeah, because the crux behind that is the fact that people didn't come. So take your Delta Airlines example. That gentleman didn't book with Delta to speak to people along the way. He actually came to Delta to fly somewhere.
Right.
And I guess they made that journey so easy for him that I assume it was he was
Yes.
surprised that, he didn't have to speak to anyone along the way. There was no, we call hops, no hop along the way to jump through or anything.
Yep.
So I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Understanding that people didn't come to your business queue up, or they didn't come to wait to pay or any of that. They just came to maybe, decorate their house or,
right. We
whatever
go to the store, not to stand in line. We go, like at the grocery store, we go to get the food we need to eat later that night. You, as a retailer, need to look at the journey that your customer is taking. How easy is it to get into the parking lot? Once they walk in, what's the experience that they feel? Are there plenty of, push carts? What's the lighting like? Is it an environment that feels welcoming? As people go through the different aisles, is it intuitive? I'm not great for going to the grocery store for two reasons. Number one, I don't go there enough to know where everything is. Number two, by the time I get out of the grocery store, whatever 3 or 4 items my wife told me to go get, I now have a basket full of things that I can't wait to get home and eat. So regardless, I see the long line and I go, oh my gosh, I've been freaking out about long lines since I was a child. It's my ADD kicking in. I remember going to a restaurant when I was a little kid with my grandparents, their favorite restaurant. There was always a line. Now that line always moved really, really fast, but I saw that line, I would freak out. Well, people do. They see a long line and they just roll their eyes and they go, I'll have to stand in that line. They came along at a grocery store with the self-service option. And so there's a lesson behind all of this. And I know I go to the grocery store to get food to eat, but what can you do as a retailer to make my journey easier, better, simpler? So they come up with this idea of self-service. And that is, I can now go to a little area, scan my own items, put them in the bag, put money or credit card into the machine, and it's a beautiful thing. And there's hardly, if the lines are there, they move, it seems, than the other lines. So it's really a better system once you learn how to do it. 2 things. Number one, it is a better system. And for those that say, well, they're just eliminating the cashier and they're saving money. No, they're not. They're creating a better experience for the customer. There's still cashiers for you to go to. Maybe one day there won't be, but right now there's plenty of cashiers. But there's always a human being standing in the self-service area, an employee that is ready to help when you go to scan that item and it doesn't scan. When you aren't sure how to, take the grapefruit, because the grapefruit doesn't have a tag to scan, but there is a way to do it. And so they're always there to help you. And I think no matter what you do, what your business is, if there is a self-service option that you're making available to customers, you must always have a very quick, easy, almost seamless version of a human-to-human support option that can be the fallback.
Yeah, definitely. Because that self-service option, it helps those customers who came in just to pick up 2 items,
right,
or 3 items, and they don't have to wait in the people with a big trolley of food. And that's taking things down to the basics. And I love that example that you've given. So just following up on that example, then. So you work with a lot of great companies and a lot of great brands. Can you give me a couple of examples maybe of companies or innovations that you think are leading the way, or things that you think are really clever and quirky that you may have seen or implemented, and those are going to be the things that you see rolling out soon across the world?
I don't think I think there's always going to be a leader, and all you got to do is look at Amazon and say, there's your leader in online, and there's even a leader in straight up retail as they've moved into brick and mortar. They have brick and mortar Amazon stores, bookstores, and their grocery stores, Whole Foods. But let's go back. I want to tell you about, go back to that book, The Amazement Revolution, which I said there was 7 areas and 5 case studies for each area. Well, that would be 35, but I mentioned there's a 36th company. And so what I did is I said there's a company that embodies all 7 of these strategies. By the way, many companies do. And if you look at your company, many of you, my guess is you may even embody all 7 of those. I wrote a book recently called The Convenience Revolution, and that has 6 convenience principles. And some companies have all 6. Some only use 1 to differentiate themselves. So back to the amazement revolution. I used American Express as a lead case study that covered all 7 areas of opportunity, strategies, and tactics, if you will. And Jim Bush, who at the time was the senior vice president of all of customer service worldwide, I had the chance to interview him. And he said something that was just brilliant. He said, we hire thousands of people for our support centers, our call centers, if you will. Back then, you're on the phone, your agent's talking to you. And he said, who's the best person to hire? If you have 2 potential employees in front of me, and one of them has 10 years worth of call center experience, and they're pretty good. They know how to manipulate the computers, and it's pretty, I'm amazed when I sit side by side with a support center agent and I see how fast they're moving around. They've got multiple screens. It's like, holy cow. And then you've got this other person that seems very capable, that has never worked at a support center before. But what they've done for the last 10 years is they worked at the front desk at a hotel, or perhaps they worked as a server at a restaurant. They understand the hospitality mentality far better than most anybody, including that person that's been working in a call center for 10 years. And Jim Bush said, I would rather hire somebody with a hotel or restaurant background, that hospitality background, because I can teach them how to work the screens and the technology behind it. But teaching that hospitality mentality, that's tough to do. That could take time. I want them coming in with that. That was just brilliant. So that's kind of a twist on who should we hire? The one that's already great at the skill, or should we hire the person who, you've heard it, attitude over skill, because you can train skill. And that's a perfect clear-cut example of that. Companies that are doing it right. I'm not going to give you a specific name of a company and that's not a cop-out answer. But here's the exercise I want you to go through. Whoever is listening to the show or watching the show, look at the companies that you admire the most. Okay, that becomes your role model. Whether it be Amazon, a great hotel that you stayed at, your favorite restaurant down the street, a retailer. Maybe you're talking to an inside sales rep because you're in a business to business and you just love the way that rep responds quickly and always seems to have the answers. What is it that you admire about those companies? And make a list of everything. And then ask yourself, am I or my company doing those things that I admire most? And is there something that I admire most that we're not doing that I could be doing? And now I'm learning from the companies that I love to do business with. You don't need to study the same company that everybody's been studying. And I know everybody writes about Amazon and Zappos and, famous hotels and Disney. I do it too. And I love these companies. But as an individual who's listening and watching this show, think about who you love working with the most and doing business with the most. What are they doing that you're not doing that you could be doing? And then start doing it.
Yeah, I like that. No, that's fine. That's good. And in a way, you have answered the question, because then what we look and admire, they're the things that resonate with us.
Right.
And I'm going to pick you up on the point you make, the hospitality mindset, maybe bringing a bit of theatre, interest, drama to your own business is how you can maybe segregate yourself out from your competitors. And I think that, again, depending on your target audience, and as long as you have clarity of your target audience, that you bring those kind of things in. And I suppose that's possibly why there's not a standard answer for that for everybody.
Yeah, it's every company, B2B, B2C, at the end of the day, it's H to H, because nobody ever said that building treated me incorrectly and treated me in a bad way. It was somebody in the building. It was somebody on the other side of a phone, some company that missed the delivery. Or somebody didn't properly package it, get it out on time, which is why the company missed the delivery. But keep in mind, it's typically H to H at the end of the day, whether it's business to business or business to consumer. It makes no difference. Everything we've talked about applies to any type of business. Even government agencies could pick up a few ideas from our conversation today.
Definitely. So look, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting to you today. I mean, as I said at the start, I first heard of you through your taxi driver story, loved it. And then you told your story about the magic tricks. I remember hearing that story. There's so many of your videos that I've watched and things like this. What are you up to at the moment in terms of, I know you've written a number of books. What are you up to at the moment then?
I just finished, it's the 2020, I call it the ACA report, Achieving Customer Amazement Report. And if you go to hyken.com/2020, the year 2020, ACA, you will get, you can download a free copy of this research where, and I mean, I didn't want to sensationalize, but I had to when I asked, if you got a bad service experience, what's the likelihood that you'd go and do business with someone else? And the answer is 96% of the people said, I would consider it. And about a third of those people said, you know, I'd consider it a little, but they'd still consider it. But the rest of it were likely or very likely to switch. That's 90+%. This is important information for us to know. How important is convenience? Would you be willing to pay more for convenience? And about 60% of the people said they would, and then it jumps to 90% if you include delivery as part of that convenience. Hence why we are happy to pay a fee for you to take it and deliver it to me. Now you say Amazon delivers for free. No, they don't. You pay $120 a year to be a member of Prime to get that free delivery. I don't see, you know, it's an interesting, is it really free? No. Is it worth it? Absolutely worth it. It is so worth it. So lots of stats and facts related to that and the different social channels. Really interesting how phone is really high up. By the way, phone is still #1 overall. And even the younger generations, millennials and all the, you know, everybody that they were talking about, different generations, the younger people are willing to use the phone almost as much as an older generation. But it's interesting, it goes exactly the opposite. Who's willing to use social media more? Younger people. But guess what? Still the, you know, baby boomer generation is still willing to, and it's pretty cool stats and facts when you look at it. Anyway, that's the stuff that gets me excited. And then I have another book project that hopefully will be out next year, and it's about returning customers. And one of the big points I want to make about that is that really, to me, you can measure customer satisfaction and net promoter score and all the measurements that people use. But the one measurement that counts to me is, does that customer come back? Okay, that's the measurement. Are they coming back and how often? And then the difference between repeat business and what drives repeat business versus what drives loyalty. And we cut on that just a little bit when I talked about that connection, creating that trust. That's a piece of the you know, emotional connection. But I love repeat customers, and if repeat customers are actually emotionally connected with us, that makes them loyal. So there you go.
Well, look, I feel like I could talk to you for longer, but I think we need to start wrapping it up because I know there's other things you've got to get to. So we'll put all the links in that we've talked about into the video, and I'm sure there's just one or two people out there in the world who don't know where to contact you because everyone else knows who Shep is. So for those one or two people who've been living under a rock for the last 36 years, what's the best way for them to connect with Shep?
Just go to hyken.com, HYKEN.com. That's where I am. That's my website. You can find me on every social media channel. Go on Amazon if you want the books. I have a TV show now called Be Amazing or Go Home. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on Apple TV. Through Roku, through different channels. You can even go to beamazing.tv and check that out, and you'll see the different episodes. That's fun. Follow me on YouTube, shep.tv. Try to make it easy.
Perfect.
600 videos on YouTube.
Yeah, so we'll put the links into the video.
Okay,
but
great.
The last thing I'm going to ask you to do before I thank you is to do your signature sign-off.
Okay, this is Shep Hyken reminding you to always be amazing.
Brilliant. Well, look, it's been brilliant talking to you.